Bear down, fam. The Bears' secondary is on fire right now. Kobe Bryant out 8 to 10 weeks, and in a minute, I'll break down why Ryan Poles' emergency response has me feeling some type of way. Luther Burden limped off the field Saturday. And even though Ian Rappaport says it's just a groin injury, there's a ghost from last season that's got me holding my breath. And to close it out, the Bears cut a veteran for a rookie at a position nobody saw coming. And that move says more than it looks like. Bear down, fam. If you only caught one loose headline this week, you have no idea how serious this actually got. Here's the full timeline. It starts with Kobe Bryant. Early last week, the Bears' starting safety left practice on a cart with a leg injury. Reports point to him being out somewhere between 8 and 10 weeks. Sit with that for a second. 8 to 10 weeks wipes out basically the entire remaining preseason buildup and likely bleeds into the start of the regular season. This is not a let us be cautious with him situation. It is a real extended absence from a player who was supposed to be a foundational piece of this secondary in 2026. So next man up, Cam Lewis. Lewis signed a one-year deal this offseason to be exactly what he ended up becoming, the versatile piece that plugs holes. He was competing for the nickel cornerback job while Kyler Gordon remained out of practice. And when Bryant went down, Lewis slid over to safety to fill that void. He did exactly what was asked of him. And on Saturday, Lewis himself went down injured. Now here is some real good news, not filler. Defensive coordinator Dennis Allen came out publicly and said he does not expect Lewis to be sidelined for long. That matters, because unlike Bryant, this sounds more like a days-long setback than a months-long problem. But stack that injury on top of Bryant's, and you already have two starting or near-starting safeties off the field in the same week. And it does not stop there. According to Bear Goggles On, Elijah Hicks is also among the defensive backs currently down. So do the math with me. Bryant, Lewis, Hicks. 3 secondary bodies out of practice at the same time in the middle of August, days before the first preseason game against Cleveland. Who is stepping in to fill those gaps, and why that has me a little concerned. With Bryant and Lewis out, the guy getting first team reps next to first-round rookie Dylan Thieneman is Skylar Thomas, a safety who was not even drafted. I am not saying Skylar Thomas cannot play. We are only a few weeks into camp. It is way too early to know that with certainty. But here is my unfiltered opinion. When your plan B and plan C at starting safety are an undrafted free agent and a one-year contract player who also just got hurt himself, that is not real depth, that is emergency depth. And there is a massive difference between those two things. I want that to be crystal clear. Ryan Poles' response, sign, and sign again. This is where the story gets interesting fast from a front office perspective. Poles did not sit back and watch his defensive backroom collapse. He reacted, and he reacted fast. First came the signing of veteran Xavier Woods. Woods brings real league experience and, important detail, already has familiarity with defensive backs coach Al Harris. That is not a small thing. When you bring in an emergency signing in August, the learning curve is everything. If that player already knows the coach directing him, integrating him into the game plan speeds up dramatically. Dennis Allen himself came out and praised that signing publicly. Then, this very Sunday, came the signing of Beanie Bishop. Bishop spent time with Pittsburgh and New Orleans, and in 2024, he put together a season that, being honest, is not bad at all for a depth player. 45 tackles, 7 pass deflections, 4 interceptions, 2 tackles for loss, 1 quarterback hit, 1 fumble recovery, and half a sack, all across 17 games. That is a player who knows how to make plays when given opportunities. And it did not stop there. On August 7th, 2 days before all of this, the Bears held a workout for 9 different defensive backs in the same session. William Wright, Brandon Hill Bishop himself, Isaiah Bolden, Jalen Mahoney, Michael Ojemudia, Dean Trey Prince, Eli Ricks, and DQ Smith. 9 in one day. A relaxed front office does not run 9 emergency workouts in one afternoon. A team that sees a problem coming does, and it knocks on doors aggressively before that problem explodes. 2 ways to read the same information here. The positive read. Ryan Poles is being proactive. He is not waiting for the problem to fix itself. He is hitting the market aggressively, signing players with real production like Bishop, bringing in veterans with scheme familiarity like Woods, and running mass workouts to have backup options ready. That, in terms of roster management, is exactly what you want to see from a general manager when things get ugly in August. The read that worries me, and this is the one I actually want us debating in the comments. Why does the Bears' secondary keep being the position group that collapses every single training camp? This is not the first time we have talked about fragility in the defensive back room on this channel, and honestly, it is starting to feel like a pattern more than random bad luck. Look, I could be wrong here. Maybe it really is just the randomness of football. Injuries happen. There is no way to plan against them 100%. But when you see season after season that the depth behind the secondary starters ends up so thin that an undrafted free agent has to play next to a first-round rookie in the middle of August, At some point, you have to ask whether the problem is bad luck or whether it is how that room is being built, and what this means tactically and structurally. This has real scheme implications too, not just roster numbers. Dennis Allen is a coordinator who relies heavily on clean communication in the secondary to execute his coverage packages, especially in disguise situations where safeties have to line up late and confuse the opposing quarterback about whether they are playing zone or man coverage. That requires reps together, it requires trust built in the film room, it requires players knowing the checks and adjustments in real time. When you plug in an undrafted free agent and 2 or 3 emergency signings within the span of 1 week, that communication does not exist yet. It has to be built from scratch in the middle of training camp with the first preseason game against Cleveland already right around the corner this Saturday. That means it is completely reasonable to expect mental errors, broken coverages, and explosive plays for the opponent in that first preseason game. Not because of a lack of individual talent, but because the communication gap in a brand new secondary does not get solved with 1 week of practice. My conditional prediction here: if Bryant returns close to the earlier end of his 8-week window and Lewis really does only miss a few days like Dennis Allen suggested, this whole story becomes a footnote by October. But if Bryant trends closer to 10 weeks and a 4th injury shows up in that room, then we are talking about a real regular season problem, not just an August one. Here's a personal theory of mine, and I cannot prove it with a spreadsheet. I have not seen anyone else saying this out loud this week, so take it as opinion, not reporting. When a team has to run a workout for 9 defensive backs in a single day in the middle of August, that is almost never just bad injury luck. Most of the time, it is also a sign that depth planning behind the starters came up short months earlier, back in the offseason, when money and draft capital got split across positions. I do not have the exact breakdown of how many day 3 picks went to the secondary in this draft compared to other spots, and I am not going to make up a number I cannot verify. But watching Chicago chase the free agent market in August, again, leaves me with the feeling that somewhere in the process of building this roster, somebody decided the secondary could wait. And when the secondary waits, it ends up paying the bill right now, with Poles signing players almost blind against the clock before the first preseason game. And look, bro, I know we just spent several minutes on injuries, but what is coming next hit different, because this is the player we have spent months building hype around across the entire offensive roster. On Saturday, during a one-on-one rep, Luther Burden got tangled up with cornerback Tariq Stevenson and went down to the turf. What we saw afterward, with spectator video circulating, was Burden limping toward the locker room with help from an athletic trainer. And for anyone who has followed this channel, you know exactly how much we have talked about Burden as the piece that can unlock Ben Johnson's offense in 2026. That moment hurt to watch. Sunday brought the update, and according to NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport, it is a groin injury and the receiver should miss a little bit of time. That is genuine relief. Groin injuries, and I want to be honest about this, are tricky. Sometimes they heal fast. Sometimes they flare back up if the player returns too soon. This is not something to treat like a simple scrape, but it also is not the nightmare scenario many of you, and me too, feared Saturday night watching that clip. Why Burden matters so much right now, the real urgency behind this story is not just emotional, it is structural. With DJ Moore already gone from Chicago, the Bears are betting heavily that Burden becomes the reliable number 2 receiver behind Rome Odunze. That is not a small bet. It is basically saying, this second-year player is going to carry real starter-level responsibility in an offense that needs to generate explosive plays for Caleb Williams to have options. And the hype behind that bet is not just me talking from my couch as a fan. Ryan Poles came out publicly this week and said Burden is the player exciting him most on the roster right now, talking about how the receiver has been constantly seeking out quarterbacks for extra route work, how you can feel the fire inside him. And Ben Johnson, who is not exactly a head coach handing out compliments like Halloween candy, said flat out that he is buying Luther Burden stock right now. That kind of language from a head coach, that direct and that public, is not an accident or interview filler. It is a real signal that what Johnson is seeing behind closed doors matches what we all saw in the second half of last season. This is my read, not a fact confirmed by anyone in the building. I believe Chicago knows exactly what it has in Burden, and that is why the public reaction to the moment he got hurt was so measured. There was no institutional panic, there was careful handling of information until there was real clarity. That tells me, at least for now, nobody inside Hollis Hall is treating this like a season-ending emergency. But, and here is the important but, listen, this is exactly the kind of situation that already burned us before with Jaylon Johnson last year. A groin injury in July that also sounded manageable at the time ended up costing Jaylon most of the 2025 season. I'm not saying the same thing is going to happen to Burden, and honestly, everything points to this being a different and less severe case. But as a fan who already lived through that scare once, keep it a buck with me, until I see him running full routes in preseason, I am keeping one cautious eye on this, not a fully relaxed one. What comes next if everything breaks right? If Burden really does only miss a few days like the initial report suggests, and returns in time for real reps before the regular season starts, the conversation around him keeps being exactly the one we have been building. A receiver who closed out 2025 on a 1,000-yard pace across his final 8 games, who led every rookie in the league in advanced impact metrics, and who now has both his head coach and his general manager publicly talking about him as a central piece of the offense. That is the player I want to see healthy on the field Saturday against Cleveland, even if it is just for a short series, just so we can all breathe easy. Okay, take a breath with me for a second, because the final story today has a little bit of everything. Bad luck. A roster decision I did not see coming, and one curious detail that raised my eyebrow. This very Sunday, while the organization was still processing the Burden news, third-round rookie Xavier Thomas left practice early with a trainer after a hard fall. He grabbed at his knee and walked off with a slight limp. According to Adam Hoge of CHGO Bears, he did not return. Let us give context on who Thomas is for anyone not fully tracking him. He is an LSU receiver with next-level speed, who, in the early weeks of camp, earned reps with the first, second, and third team offense, plus work as a kick and punt returner. That kind of workload for a rookie tells you exactly how much the coaching staff trusts his versatility. Just last week, he hauled in a touchdown from Tyson Bagant during a rainy practice, and he has been generating that quiet type of buzz, the keep an eye on this guy buzz, that I love tracking as an analyst. The good news, and I want to be honest about grading the severity here, is that everything right now points to a mild limp and not something structurally serious. But fam, with Burden's news just announced the same weekend and the secondary already on fire like we discussed in the first story, any receiver limping off the field in August raises your blood pressure a little, even if it is purely precautionary. The decision that genuinely surprised me, goodbye Luke Elkin. And here comes the roster twist I did not see coming this week. The Bears released long snapper Luke Elkin, who had been with the organization since last year and before that spent time with Las Vegas. Elkin was locked in a direct position battle against rookie Bo Gardner for the starting job. My honest opinion, I thought Elkin, given his experience and continuity, had the edge in that battle. I got it wrong, and this is not the first time one of these quiet camp battles has burned me on a prediction, so I have no problem admitting it. Gardner arrives with a serious resume. He won the Patrick Manley Award as the nation's best long snapper and was a first-team All-American at Georgia. This is not a simple roster filler. This is a specialist who came in with real expectations, and apparently he is meeting them well enough in camp to beat out a veteran with actual league experience. Why should you as fans care about this beyond roster gossip? Because long snapper is one of those invisible positions until it fails. A bad snap at a critical field goal or punt moment can cost an entire game. The fact that the Bears decided to bet on young talent over the safety of experience tells me they trust the technical evaluation they made of Gardner during these weeks of camp. And to close out the package of moves, enter William Wright. Tying back to our first story, the need in the secondary remains the defining theme of the weekend. Out of that mass workout of 9 defensive backs I mentioned earlier, the Bears ended up signing William Wright, a former Tennessee defensive back. Wright played 45 games for the Volunteers between 2020 and 2025, racking up 28 tackles, 2 interceptions, 3 pass deflections, 1 touchdown, and 26 kick return yards. His first career start in college came, almost poetically, in his very last game, the Music City Bowl against Illinois. This is not a signing that moves the needle dramatically, keep it a buck. It is one more depth body joining a room that already welcomed Woods and Bishop within days of each other. But it adds another player with high-level college experience to a room that, as we covered in the first story, desperately needs it right now. And there you have it, fam. One of those Sundays that perfectly sums up what real training camp actually looks like. It is not just pretty highlight hype. It is crisis management, tough roster calls, and the constant anxiety of watching your favorite players limp off the field. My honest summary of everything today: the secondary still worries me, and I want to see how that patched-together group looks Saturday against Cleveland before I fully relax. Burden gives me relief, but relief with my eyes wide open after what we lived through with Jalen Johnson last year. And the long snapper surprise reminds me that Ryan Poles and his coaching staff are willing to make decisions based on what they see on the field, not resume or seniority, and that, generally speaking, is a positive sign for how talent is being evaluated at Hollis Hall this summer. Bear down, always. If this video gave you something, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me down in the comments. Do you trust Ryan Poles to fix this secondary crisis before the regular season kicks off, or do you think this follows us all the way into November? I want to read every single answer. See you in the next one.